Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. Today, joining me in studio is a gentleman we just like to refer to as Rocket. Rocket in Vermont. Welcome back. You've been on this show before.
I have. It's great to be back, Pat.
It's cool. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So much to talk about. I was trying to find out when you were about a year ago, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, and Pat, before we get started, last time I was here, I brought you a gift.
I did?
It was the Run Amok Maple Sparkling Syrup. Great gift, in my opinion. You know, just from Fairfax up the road. Today I brought you these little chocolate hearts.
Oh, aren't you the sweetest person? Thank you.
They're from Rabble Rouser. Just down the road.
That's right in town here.
Just
like
down
Rabble
the road.
Rouser.
Yeah, and I thought hearts would be appropriate because
that's very sweet.
I love you, and a lot of people love you. So
that's very nice. Well, they know me. Apparently, my voice is something people pick up on when I'm in a store. They'll go, "Hey, are you Pat McDonald? I recognize your voice."
They're listening from the other aisle. They come around.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask Rocket to talk a little bit about himself and how he came to Vermont and all the stuff you're doing in Vermont. Take it away.
Well, Pat, I was born in California, Northridge, California. And at the age of 15, I was going to this Shishi private school in Newport Beach, California.
Oh.
And I hated it.
Oh.
I had my hair growing out. I was growing a mullet. I went to my parents. I said, I think I'm going to drop out to be a drummer. And my mom said, that's a terrible idea.
I can't imagine why.
Well, you also should have seen what kind of drummer I was because I was a terrible drummer.
Oh, well, there you go.
So that made the idea even worse. She said, why don't you check out art school? And one of my middle school bandmates had gone to the Putney School. So I came to Vermont, visited the Putney School, and it was so unlike anything I'd ever seen in California that I said, yeah, I fell in love immediately. Came on out and stayed for my 3 years there, sophomore through senior year. And it was a terrific, incredible experience. Stayed in Vermont to go to Middlebury College.
Nice.
Did all 4 years there on campus, studied economics. And then I spent my 20s, I call them my Kerouac years, and traveling here and there, but always coming back to Vermont.
Nice.
You know, Vermont just has this magnetic pull for me. And so I ended up back here just before the pandemic, and today I am here.
There you go. And you're involved in your select board in town. You go to law school.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're graduating
in May.
Nice.
We'll see.
We have to write that down.
I'm supposed to graduate in May.
You will. I have confidence. Do you know, I meant to tell you this before. I've been in business a lot of years, and so many companies, even if you don't pursue being an attorney, so many companies are led by people who went to law school, because I think law school teaches you how to think in a different way than perhaps other schools do, and it's a process of thinking that really works. And a lot of companies are led by attorney, by law school trained.
I think it's argue at every step.
Yeah, well, there you go.
When in doubt, throw the book.
Well, it's a good skill.
I think what it is, though, is really that the law. If just like in a game, there are rules. Well, the law are the rules of society. So to study that, to be able to understand it, to be able to navigate it, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's everybody I know that's a CEO of something is also could take the bar and could be an attorney, but I think that's really says a lot for the way you're taught. So I expect great things from you.
Well, thank you, Pat. But I do want to say this, and I've been debating how to say this positively because it's a tough thing to say. But I'm wrapping up at Vermont Law School, and I'm pretty concerned, actually, about the state of education in Vermont broadly. Not just from my experience at Vermont Law, which is direct, and I think that we are due for leadership turnover at Vermont Law.
I agree.
But at Vermont Law School specifically, but also we're seeing this at higher education across the board, not just nationally, but here in Vermont. And, I think my great concern really is that people go to school expecting an education. The cost of an education has risen faster than anything except healthcare. Yeah. And I'm not sure that the value of education has grown at the same clip. So you have a lot of students who are from Vermont who are taking out debt and staying here to be educated and not necessarily getting what they bargained for.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of people who come to Vermont for that education, and their association with Vermont is going to be heavily influenced by their relationship with their higher education, right?
Right.
And I think that we have a serious reckoning to do in higher education from the collegiate level up.
Right.
And
I know this is years ago. I'm a
yeah.
big proponent of tech ed. I mean, I just support it 100%. And most of our businesses here in Vermont, that's all they need and want
Right.
for their business. And they were willing to train, but just come with a little bit of
Right.
a common sense
You're
from
talking
tech ed.
technical schools.
Technical
right?
schools, yeah.
Right.
And I was told when I was a deputy commissioner for education for a while under David Walt, and the head of the VTC told me that kids came out of high school 6 months behind, so that they couldn't just start up in tech ed at VTC. They had to take 6 months of catching up before they could get them into the regular curriculum for tech ed. Now that adds to cost, that adds to time, because tech ed is usually 2 years, and it's much cheaper obviously than college, and you do get your money's worth because most of those the skills they're teaching you, they're going to be in the marketplace forever and ever.
Right.
You know, and good paying jobs. It's a scary thing.
Well, you know, I think that there is my personal opinion, and it's a controversial take, but I think that we've got too much administration and not enough education. And I think one of the things, so I was just in Japan, and I know that that's something you wanted to talk about, but one thing that I really loved about Japan, when you go on Google Maps in Japan and you're looking at the ratings of different coffee shops or restaurants and so forth, it is rare for a restaurant to be rated over 4 stars for a, you know, on a 5-star scale. In America, everything's 4.6 to 5, right?
Well, we don't want to insult you.
Right.
You know.
But that actually makes it very tough as a consumer to tell, well, what's actually good or not.
Right.
And in Japan, the consumers are so discerning and so critical that most of these places have 3.5 stars. It was pretty good, right?
Interesting. Well, good for them.
And you could see, though, where in education, we might have the same problem. If everyone gets an A or everyone gets to pass and move up, well, you're not actually holding people to the standard where they want to rise or they're able to rise. And I think it's actually a great disservice to the students. Of course, it's more difficult, but you grow in difficult environments.
Right.
You don't want to crush anybody or be demeaning in any way. But I think being honest is being rigorous.
Right.
And it's actually the greatest way to honor a student. And I think that that's something that's...
Well, and what an achievement if you happen to have a 4 or 5 star. If it means something, that's great, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, I agree with you. It's sad.
Right. I mean, there are... so there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
But I think that it's... and Dan French just stepped down last year, right? Secretary of Education.
I thought he was still there, but he maybe gave his notice.
They have an interim, and I think they need someone to fill.
Yeah.
And I said, geez, I would love to get in there and start failing everybody.
Exactly. Well, do you know what I found when I was running for the legislature? People do not go to their school board meetings. They don't show up. Only during election time, all of a sudden everybody's coming. Or if there's a really hot issue, then they show up. But on a normal basis, they don't show up to the grade school.
Sure. Well,
so it goes on the way they want it.
Speaking from the perspective of the select board, which no one shows up and very few citizens tune in. It's not no one. We do have some regular citizens. Yeah. But the vast majority of our 10,500 person town does not show up and does not tune in, does not pay attention. Well, there's two aspects of this. One, on our fault, our meetings are 3, sometimes 4 hours long.
Wow.
Who has time for that?
Yeah, right.
Right? And so there's that side. And on the other side, I would say it's the same with voter participation. Maybe people not showing up is a sign that things are good. Maybe. Because here's the thing about voter participation. People always say, we need more voter participation, right? It's a shame that people are not voting. Well, I think that government should work. Government is a utility. Everyone has a right to it. It should serve everybody equally and equitably. And I think that you should not be worried about whether it's going to operate well or not.
Right.
That's my opinion of government.
It just should. Right?
It just should. Yeah. we don't worry about the power or the transformers or the power lines, or, we don't worry about the water and the sewer and the flow rates and the diameter of the pipes. That's not something citizens worry about because we're blessed with great infrastructure. Now in other countries, the power goes out and you have cycles. You can only turn your power on for 3 hours a day. Of course you're going to care. When it works well, we pay less attention. And I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I think that ideally you want close to no voter participation because the government is operating so smoothly. Who cares if it's this person or that person? They're both going to do an excellent job, right? I think that would be
that would be great to think. I like it.
It's idealistic, I know, but I do think that sometimes high voter turnout is a symptom. It's like high customer complaints, right? I mean, we're voting because we want new leadership, right?
Yeah, I just was surprised. And you also have to know what the heck you're doing on a select board. No offense, I've been on select boards. You don't necessarily have to kill yourself preparing for the meetings because it's, the culverts and things that you can sort of pick up on. But a school board, you have got to do your homework and be at that meeting ready to work and ready to go. But people, I don't know, they just aren't interested. We per capita, per student, we spend the most money on any student in the US of A. Do you know that? We spend the most money, and we do not get a return on investment because the United States of America, if I have this right, is in the middle of the pack of the world. Of all the world countries, we are in the middle. So to say we're the best of the middle, what is that? Everybody, we're the best. We're best state in the United States of 25. What is that? That's nothing.
Well, yeah,
That's nothing to be proud of.
I think there's a lot to be said for the potential growth and the potential improvement of the American education system. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear. Wasn't paying attention to Dan French. I remember hearing about it, but I thought he was still there. I'm very sad to see because he really tried. He was very accessible. If you called Dan, he would be on it. He was a good guy. Anyway, so you have. You started this video, I think it's a company, is it not? A video company or video?
There's a video series, yeah.
And mostly it's about food in Vermont. And I like that. And we talked about it before, but you think it means, and I think it means too, farm to plate. That's what Vermont's food is about. It's about the freshness, the variety maybe. And
well, and it's how local everything is.
Yeah.
And it's, the challenge with saying farm to plate, one of the things that's tough about that is that there's this perception of farm to plate is very expensive, right?
That's true.
And so I think that is a true part of Vermont, which is extremely high quality, extremely meticulously, lovingly crafted, but also expensive, right? And I think there's also a part of local food in Vermont, which is homesteaders. And people who just make a little more for their neighbors, or grow a little more for their neighbors, or grow a little extra and bring it to the farmer's market, or people who are cooking out of their kitchens, their home kitchens under cottage industry laws. So that to me also, there is, when we say farm to plate, I don't mean just that highfalutin bourgeoisie level, I mean
it's the real thing,
the localness of it, the smallness of it, where, if you live in Southern California where I grew up, you would not know the restaurant owner of any restaurant that you go to.
Wow, I think we all know everybody here, right?
Here we know each other and more than we want to know sometimes, right? And I think, Bohemian Bakery, Annie has the owner there. That's her art on the walls. And how beautiful is that? And it's not to say that doesn't exist in other states, but just how deep and prevalent that is in Vermont. It's the norm, not the exception. And I think
it tastes better too. When you go there, Waitsfield big on this. They have a lot of. You read the restaurant, eggs from Joe's on Route 12. And I know where Joe's is.
And then all the crust that you didn't eat, where does that go? It goes to the chickens that lay the eggs.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I had Ensign Tebbets and I would talk about this, particularly cows. We've lost 7 farms in Berlin, where I live. Over the years. So we used to have farms every time you turned around. There was a farm, not big, but a family farm. He said to me that even though we have much fewer farms, we are, because of technology, we are actually producing more meat, and the same I think with eggs, that we have less but more because of what we've learned from technology and how to grow. You don't grow cows, do you? No, you
raise
do
them.
not. Raise, thank you. That's the right word. Raise cows, and I think that's pretty interesting because.
Well, on the note of my video series and these farms, we're producing a few videos with local food producers, and two of them are with dairy farms. One is up at Nelson Farms in Irisburg.
Oh, yes.
And they are a really interesting, amazing family. They actually have two farms. One's a conventional dairy and one's an organic dairy. And they're within visual distance. They're across the road from each other. And so I love this story because both farms, it's the same family. So they have the same commitment to the animals, to the land, to the milk, to their consumers. And just one operates with a different set of rules than the other. And so often these two, conventional versus organic, get pitted against each other as if they're different worlds and different people, and these people love the earth and these people just want money, right? And it's like, well, what do you do in a case where it's the same family? Yeah. You can see it's actually two different types of business that look the same on the outside from, the perspective of hay, cows, and milk. But they're adapting to the markets in different ways. One is through scale and technology, and the other is through organic, value-added commodity. So that's one. And the other one that we're working on a video for is Woodlawn Farmstead, which is down in Pollitt.
Oh, nice.
And Pollitt, oh my gosh. I mean, both of those areas are stunning.
That is great.
But Woodlawn Farmstead is vertically integrating, so they are growing a lot of their corn and, silage, and then they raise their cows, and then they sell to local cheese producers like Plymouth Cheese.
Nice.
So
like what cheese?
Plymouth cheese.
Oh, Plymouth cheese. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Crowley cheese, and so it's these different ways that farms have learned to adapt. And the thing about dairy, I have so much respect for dairy farmers, and I wish the dairy life on nobody because it's so difficult.
It's hard.
It's cows don't take a day off, and it's physical, and it can be dirty, it can be dangerous, and it's relentless. And I have just an immense amount of respect for the farmers that want to do it. I think the thing that we should be careful as a society and as a community to think about is when people decide that for economic reasons or for personal, emotional, physical reasons, whatever reasons, that dairy farming is no longer for them, that we have a society that is robust enough that they have other options so that they can continue to work on the land or to feed their families or to live a very similar standard of living. That's what's important, more than being blindly loyal to just dairy. And I also think, I might get in trouble for this, but I've been dying to laugh a little more about Peter Welch's bill about the Dairy Pride Act.
Oh, right.
Which is to,
yes, please explain that one. That's a beauty.
Well, I think the intent is very good. It's very noble, which is to protect dairy farmers. And I did ask a couple of dairy farmers, and they were supportive of it, but I don't know if they were just saying that because they just want anything that's going to support them, which I would understand. But basically, the idea is that calling things like almond milk or soy milk, well, those are not milk. You can't milk a nut.
Oh, right, exactly. Good luck with that.
And there's a pretty hilarious joke, which I don't know if I can tell on air.
Probably not. We'd have to delete it. So.
But the point is that you can milk a nut. It's just, I just think it's a little. The intent is good. I think I think we should try again.
Execution.
We should try again. Try different ways to support dairy.
I was thinking, and I haven't heard about this, but I am assuming that the flood that hit this place in both in the summer and in this fall has wiped out a lot of organic farms, because to be labeled organic, it takes years for the soil to be at a certain level and be maintained at a certain level. And then you've got this flood, which God only knows what it puts on the... I bet we've lost a lot of organic farms in Vermont, and I should ask Ensign Tebbets about that.
That's definitely an Ensign question.
I wouldn't know, and I haven't heard about it, but I bet it's had an impact, because I know a friend of mine in in Berlin, where I live, he rented his land out to a farmer, and this guy wanted to be organic, and it took him... You have to jump through one loophole after. It's ridiculous to become classified as organic.
Certified organic. Right. Grace Odell, who runs NOFO, would also be another great person to ask. I think my understanding is, of course, that there are a huge number of hoops that you have to jump through in order to get organic certification. But my understanding is that once you're organic certified, there is actually no soil testing. A lot of it is done through purchase orders and off the trust of the farmer, which is not very encouraging.
Yeah,
and
right.
This is
especially after a flood, God only knows.
That's on the federal level, mandated on the federal level. This is my understanding. I could be wrong, but the something like the flood, of course, has risk of putting contaminants into the soil,
for sure.
And they might then require soil tests after. Either way, I mean, regardless of certification or not, the floods, I mean, were devastating for so many people.
Right.
And I think my takeaway personally has been that we need to think really seriously about climate change from the perspective of making Vermont resilient, and not so much about whether we are carbon neutral or not neutral or whatever.
Right.
Because I don't think that anything we do, if we electrify the entirety of Vermont, is going to make a dent in climate change globally.
Nope.
However, if we are setting an example, or we're being good neighbors, global citizens, and doing our part, or if it's that we're reducing our reliance on fossil fuels because we have to bring that in from elsewhere, I think there are a lot of great reasons to go carbon neutral or be environmentally conscious.
Right.
But I think we need to be really careful to think about why is it. Should we spend this $40,000, $50,000 on an electric mower, or should we be socking that away to build a bigger culvert?
Right.
And
Some
of these culvert projects are millions of dollars. I mean, unbelievable amount of work. So I think that's my great takeaway of the floods from last year is that we need to be working right now to figure out every engineering solution possible so that businesses are not being flooded, so homes are not being flooded, so that people are not being displaced, especially during crucial times like August, which is a huge tourist sales month, and December, which is, again.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little while ago, that businesses here, they went through this whole thing this summer, tried to get back, open up their business, and bam, they get hit again.
Yeah.
And I tried to get I wasn't very successful in getting people to do the buy local, to keep pushing that on people, because in order for these businesses to stay open, they have to make a lot of money in the fourth quarter of, like in 2023, to make it through the first quarter of 2024.
Right.
Because who buys after Christmas? Not many people.
Right.
And I think the chamber did it, but I wrote to the governor, and I just couldn't get people to help. Giving up Amazon's a toughie, but you got to do it,
Well, that's very noble of you, Pat.
Well, you do. You have to.
Yeah.
It's you want these people in the spring to have their doors still open.
Right.
I mean, how awful. Montpelier won't ever look the same.
Well, and it's just a system-wide issue, I think, where, for example, I mean, I think you and I agree on this. I think that the dialogue has been driven way too much around social issues and not enough about economic issues.
Right.
But what I think the people who are more focused on social issues sometimes fail to understand is that when people are hungry, nobody cares about social issues. Hungry people do not care about any type of social issue, race, tribe, sex.
Put food on the table.
Exactly. And I think as soon as you can solve that and people are less existentially worried about, is my kid going to be hungry at school today or not?
Right.
When they can not worry about paying rent or not worry about putting gas in their car, then it's a lot easier for people to generally be more empathetic and understanding.
Right.
And I think all of these social issues, many of which I actually very much agree on, will be non-issues, right? But I think when you're talking about the apple and not the root of the apple tree. Right. And so I think that's sort of where I think we have misprioritization and a lack of focus.
What are the big issues on your select board? I'm assuming housing, cost of living.
Housing first and foremost.
Yeah.
Cost of living has been some debate. Of course, our rising costs and so forth.
Right.
But inflation this year wasn't as bad as last year, and then we also had ARPA funding to offset.
Right.
And so there are some accounting tricks that we were able to benefit from, let's say. And as someone who, here's the thing. I'm personally, the way I live and what I believe and so forth, I'm very liberal and loose in the way that I live. I very much believe in individual freedom this way, and I have friends of all types, and I don't mind. When it comes to governance and the responsibility of a select board, I think it is the role, if you think of the select board or the town as an organization or as a single entity, then I think it's probably better if that entity is more conservative by a Vermont standard, not a, by a reasonable conservative, whereas the individual can be very liberal and loose and free and, oh, you know what? I'm going to splurge a little bit and buy Pat some chocolate,
yes,
right? And I'm not going to even note that down in my accounting, right? That's for me to decide in my own individual personal consequence and outcome and so forth. In the government, you are 7 people, a body of 7 on our select board, responsible for the purse strings or the tax of 10,500 plus. It might be 10,680 something, right? So it's a lot of people that we are now looking forward, like responsible to take care of. And I think with respect to that, being very judicious and cautious about the money that we spend and so forth, it's a different level of responsibility. And I think, I think sometimes people take their personal values and then try to apply that on a scale that is different, where the outcome is going to be different, the effect is going to be different. And so, I've been giving that some thought.
Lot to think about.
More to come.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned.
These are just rough ideas here.
I want to talk about this app that you're putting together, because you told me, I thought that was fabulous. When is before we say what it is, when is it out? You said people can test it now.
We're going into testing in the next week or 2.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
And then depending on how much feedback they give us, hopefully none. Hopefully they say,
this is great. Go for it.
Then hopefully by next month, we'll have it out in the App Store. You'll be able to go on the App Store and on your Android or on your iPhone and
download it.
And it's called Stellar.
Stellar.
Like Stella with an R. Stellar!
And tell people what it does. That's the fascinating thing.
Right, so in short, it's an AI-powered kitchen assistant. So if you think about all this artificial intelligence that's coming out, some of which is intriguing and scary.
Yeah, right.
And some of which will hopefully be helpful and useful.
Right.
Well, we're trying to build on the useful side. And basically, the smallest version of it will be able to know what your taste preferences are and what your allergens are. And for you to be able to take a photo of your pantry or your refrigerator, to snap a photo, and to design recipes for you. And if you say, you know what, that sounds like too much work. Can we do something simpler? It'll say, no problem, Pat.
Exactly.
It'll make you something simpler. You say, I'm feeling a little under the weather. Can we do something hot instead of cold? No problem, Pat. And just with the best, the most stellar attitude,
there you go.
It'll just recreate a recipe for you. So anytime that you might be going online and trying to figure out what should I do with this rutabaga, or what should I do with all these leftover yams and and this leftover sweet corn, and instead of going online and looking up recipes and spending a couple hours digging here, digging there, all the advertisements that are on these blogs, will you just be able to get on Stellar and just talk to this, just as simply as you and I are talking here.
And it makes a shopping list for you, so you can bring it with you?
It'll make a grocery list for you, help you manage that. So if you decide you want to cook a recipe, it'll say, well, here's the things you're missing. So you put into a grocery list. And
what fun.
You'll be able to go out to any number of Vermont restaurants, or really, frankly, anywhere in the world, and say, I love this dish. How can I make this at home? And it'll say, well, here's a recipe. And by the way, here's what you have in your pantry and in your fridge. So here's what you need to buy on your way home. So it'll be, you think about the old parable of the angel on the shoulder, the devil on the other.
When they do that,
it'll be right. Well, this will just be like a little chef on your shoulder.
Oh, cool, excellent.
Your Nona, your grandma Nona on your shoulder.
It's like elf on a shelf. It's a shelf on the shoulder.
It's a chef on a shoulder.
There you go.
Exactly. I love that line.
That's cool.
Yeah, we should use that. Chef on a shoulder.
Chef on a shoulder. That's cool. Wasn't that a dance move when they do some kind of? Do they do that?
I don't know. I think it's just brushing off.
I don't know. Just like, don't bother me.
I thought it was brushing away your woes.
Oh, it could be. That could be. Who knows? I watch that when they dance. I go, oh, there you go.
Or maybe your scalp is very dry and you've got dandruff.
Exactly.
But you're trying to just...
Stay tuned, people.
You're trying to pass it off very casually.
Don't bother me. That is really exciting. And you found this techno-savvy person here in Vermont?
I sure did, yeah. I was very lucky to meet this brilliant software developer. He's from Nepal. And his partner is a nurse. They're
Nice.
just wonderful people. So
Great.
So he and I are developing this together, and we, through the media and the content we developed through
Yeah.
Eat Vermont, which is my food-focused
Yeah.
company, we are building Stellar.
Great.
Stella!
Stella, yeah, that's a great ad. Stella. That is so cool. So I guess when I think about Vermont, I know we talked about what foods in Vermont and stuff. You have so many places to go to in Vermont. There are restaurants, there are farmers markets. There's one better than the other. And I have taken to buying meat at farmers markets. And when I was summering in Maine, they had it was called Farmer's Daughter, and it was a fruit stand. It was a vegetable stand, but they had a freezer that had all of their beef products from their farm. And I called Ensign Tebbets and I said, how do I know that these are good? I mean, are they good? And he said, and I think Maine's the same way, that here in Vermont, if you only sell locally, you have to be state inspected, so you would have a state sticker. If you sell out of state, you have to have a federal sticker, so you just look for the stickers and you should be good to go. And it's sometimes much cheaper than the store because you could die. I get into more conversations at Price Chopper by making sounds when I look at the price of. I'm like, are you kidding me?
When you think all those meats at supermarkets, well, I just shouldn't say all, but many of them are dyed with colors.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To make them look redder.
Yeah, and when you open up like the pack of chopped meat and it's gray inside, hello.
Right.
Yeah, it's stuff you have to think about.
Well, I think I should take the moment to shout out a couple of farmers in this area. Well, there's Fifth Quarter, which is a butcher down in Waitsfield.
Oh, really?
And they do a great job. Their meats look beautiful.
What is the name of it?
Fifth Quarter.
Fifth Quarter.
They're in the Mad River Taste shop, which is right next to the Waitsfield Farmers Market. And
that's in that little section there. That's great.
Yes.
I have to check that out.
Yeah.
The Waitsfield Farmers Market is one of the best.
That's a great one.
It's great.
It's a great one.
Entertainment. They have Casey Bagels there. I mean, seriously.
And then here at the Montpelier Farmers Market, I had a killer sandwich from Union Brook Farm.
Oh.
And they're based out of Northfield.
Nice.
It's this lovely lesbian couple based out of Northfield, and they have Airbnbs, and they do farm all these different meats and animals.
Oh, nice. Great. Well, that's it. Yeah, I buy a lot of meat at the Montpelier one because I know some of them are in my town, so I buy local, because it just tastes better.
Yeah.
And you know it's been packaged with love, and there you go.
Well, and the thing is, like, you can always drive down the road and just see the animals there, and you see the conditions that they live in, and
they're right
there.
The
farmer and the care and concern they give their animals, the respect that they give their animals.
Yeah,
it's great.
I agree with you. That's great. Very nice. They feel calm and they're good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just don't give them names. That's tough. I was just a friend of mine moved down south, and her son bought all these sheep, and the deal was that they were going to use the sheep for food, and that they made the mistake of naming them, so she's sworn off the sheep. She said, nope, can't do it. When you're looking at a plate and it's Bob, it's like, nope, that's not working.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's good. So what's next one for you here with all the stuff you've got going?
With my life?
Yeah, with your life.
Well, a little bit more of the same. I'm finishing law school.
Right.
I'm finishing my term on the select board.
Yep.
And I have a note on that. Yeah. And building Eat Vermont, doing the content creation. I was thinking, I told you this, I was thinking it could be fun to do a radio show.
Oh, I think you would be great.
I mean, radio is fun because you have no idea who's listening, how many people. It could just be me in a room.
Right.
But it's not, my fifth grade teacher said, you love the sound of your voice. Well, not really, but I do love the feeling of speaking.
Right. Well, I get a big kick out of the radio.
To tell stories is like the great joy. I mean, what else is there in humanity except to bond with each other through the power of telling stories?
Yeah.
And common experience. So
you were talking about I think people need to be educated about bills. And Ben Kinsley and I, who we do a campaign for Vermont together, we have a radio show that we do, or a TV show, anything. It's called Banter and Beans.
Banter and Beans.
Banter over a cup of coffee. And we talk about bills. And I don't know if people get bored with it, but they should know, because I disagree with this. We did a poll recently, and it said a high percentage of people think that they are up to speed on what's going on in the legislature. And I would so disagree with that. I think they know the sound bites of what's going on.
Sure.
But they don't know what's in the bills.
Oh, for me, I feel like I have no idea.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Even though I read voraciously.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we were talking about, and I'm not going to do this on the scene, but the abortion bill that we signed, that we put it in our Constitution. Nowhere in that language does it say the word abortion, does it say the word 9 months or women. It says people. And it allows 9-month abortions, for it or against it, and it's all sold under the women's rights. And so people, when I tell people what it really says, they're shocked because they really didn't know.
Well, and this is a very difficult thing that happens a lot with bills in general, which is that on the surface, they sound great.
Exactly.
Right? So you say, like, well, of course I support that.
Right.
And then if you don't support it, if someone who reads it and doesn't support it for nuances of the language,
right,
it's so political to turn around and say, you see this person does not support it.
Right.
And it's such a political game that people do. But at the end, it's like, it feels to me very disingenuous. And actually, so before we jump into that pit of snakes, I would actually like to go back and finish answering your question about what's next for me.
Oh, for sure. Go right ahead.
Because it ties in.
Yep.
Which is that 2024 is an election year. Being on the select board, being in law school, being a chatty Cathy, as I am, loving telling stories and getting on camera and so forth, I have in many ways the personality of a politician or a public servant. So it's been in my mind for much of my life that is a possible career path.
Right.
People have asked, Vermont Digger featured me last year, and they asked me, well, what's your political future, and so forth, right? I mean, the truth is, I have considered very seriously serving the public or, offering to serve. Right. I think some people say running for office or campaigning or something. I want to think of it more as offering myself to the public to serve if they would want me, right? But nonetheless, so let's just use the traditional framing of running for office. So I've thought about it, but I've after much consideration, I've decided that I am probably going to pass this year. And part of it is because, part of it's very personal. I just don't think personally, professionally, I have so much going on that I need to sort out still and grow with getting Stellar out the door, developing Eat Vermont further. And there's many ways that I feel I can contribute to my community without being in public office beyond the select board level, which I am so honored to serve and to do. So I don't mean to diminish that in any way. And but at levels that are higher up than select board, right, I think that it's gotten so acrimonious and so divisive. I really yearn for an era where, or even a culture, because I don't even think it's gone. I just think it's gone from Vermont,
right?
Which is this, and maybe gone from America, which is this era where you could say, Pat, I completely disagree with you. In fact, I think that's maybe the most stupid thing I've heard this year,
right?
Although the year's just started. But I adore you, and I think we should nonetheless go have lunch. Right, and how about that?
Yeah.
Where is that? And I'm not saying that I'm perfect in that way, because sometimes people say things, hello? Sometimes people say things that I disagree with, and I do find my guard or my wall coming up and saying, I don't know if I want to talk any further to that person. So I'm not pointing the blame at anyone else, because I think I have to work on that myself.
Right.
Still, but that pernicious attitude is so prevalent. Everywhere now. And beyond that, it's gotten to the point of weaponizing things that should not be weaponized in personal attacks or attacks on family or fabrication of things, but also
lies.
Lies and the politicization of things like, if, for example, you were to not support I did vote in support of that constitutional amendment, right? But if I were to not have supported it for those clauses, right? I did read it, and there were things in that did make me uncomfortable. I also felt that it was probably unnecessary to, enshrine this in our state constitution. I nonetheless do believe in the right to abortion, so I supported it.
I do too, actually.
And so, but it was a complex debate for me of like, well, should I not, because of this, right? The problem is in a case where it's, that one didn't matter. It passed with flying colors and so forth, right? And I'm also not voting in the position of an elected official. But if you are an elected official and you're voting on a piece of legislation, let's say, well, you might have really deep grievances or reservations about certain clauses and say, I really cannot support those things, even though I support the underlying ethos of this bill. To vote against it means that you get put out in the media circuit and dragged around by the noose for not supporting abortion, right? It's such a terrible, cynical way to govern and to tear each other down over these things.
Right.
It's tough to have this level of nuance in our day-to-day lives.
Yep, and people do not ask politicians questions. If you show up for oh, he's so nice, he shows up for, but how does he vote? And people do not put their feet to the fire to ask them, how do you vote about climate change? How do you vote about it? They don't, because I interviewed somebody who shall remain nameless a couple of years ago, who was on this show, and I would have voted for him in a heartbeat based on the answers he gave me to the questions I asked. And then he got in office. Not even close. And I have the video that says, here's what I would do. Then we have the real world response. Nope, not even close. And I didn't say or do anything. I went, well, there you go. How can you stop that?
Right, well, it's also, I've seen this on the select board level. I felt it in myself personally, and then I've seen it also with a lot of the political leaders, let's say, that I know or have crossed paths with. And just speaking for myself, which is that sometimes you get in there and you're under the bright lights, you know you're being filmed, you can see yourself on the TV, and you know, and I think there is this fear sometimes, or this impulse to say, oh gosh, if I vote this way, it might just be easier to abstain than to vote no. You know, I don't want the citizen to shout at me, oh, those emails I got last week really hurt my feelings. So you can see where you would be influenced that way. Now, I would say I'm proud that on the select board I have always voted my conscience and I've always spoken my mind. I would be a liar to say that I've never felt like a little doubt to say, should I just pass or whatever, right? So you could see that the pressure increase the bigger the scale gets. But it is disappointing. As a citizen, it's disappointing. You say, no, if that's what you believe, go ahead and vote it. And I might be one of the citizens that comes and says something about it, but you should still nonetheless vote your conscience, right? And I think it's challenging. I'm also, personally, I'm lucky because I do so much media creation, content production, that I'm used to being on camera. I'm used to like this idea that, okay, I just said something now, 5,000 people saw it or 20,000 people saw it. And I'll go random places or, I just posted on my social media, hey, I'm in Japan, and it's been a great trip. Well, I started hearing from all these random people, I was Japan. And you say, oh, well, that's the power of social media, right? So amplifying that, many people have their own personal social media as well. I'm used to being in this case where there's a lot of people who follow, Eat Vermont has a following of 25,000 people. Well, that's quite a lot of people.
Quite a lot.
So I probably only know 1,000 or 2 people in my entire life. So there's a lot of people that we're reaching that I don't know. And so I'm used to this process where what I say might be heard by, picked up by, and received by many people who I don't know. Therefore, I'm used to being in a circumstance like Select Board where I know that even if I disagree with this, I'm going to have to phrase it in a way that will not be, with your friends, you might say, burn it down. But then you get in public, you say, well, maybe we can't say it that way just because how hurtful that would be to someone else, right? So you say, listen, I have frustrations about this. And so that's a process that I'm learning, right? But I think that a lot of people who enter the public's eye don't have that. And because of that conditioning, and because of that, they just become a little disingenuous because they don't know necessarily how to navigate it. But it is disappointing, it's disheartening, and it is one of the reasons why I don't want to have a political career, is because I don't want to be around politicians.
Well, and what happens is you get in the State House and you get so sucked into that world,
Right.
you honestly struggle, which is why I think it's important to go home and not to necessarily stay in Montpelier.
Right.
If you can go home, go home. Don't stay there because it just sucks you right in.
Well, there's the thing. I mean, the State House is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you're all suited up. And then you're in there, and you know, one step after another, you get all these cues that all of a sudden we're doing this important thing.
Right.
Now, they are doing an important thing, as they're setting laws for our state. But doing an important thing can sometimes become conflated with being an important person.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And it's not to say that they're not important people, but it's to say that you start to get a little, like the balloon starts to float you away from your own humanity.
Right.
And I definitely see that with a lot of public servants, politicians. And I wish that there was a way, you know, what it is for me, Pat, is I feel like right now politics dominates real life. And people are exhausted with it.
Right.
Right? It should be the other way around, where real life dominates politics. Right? So all these public servants are obsessed with what it's like to be a gas station worker who goes out on breaks and smokes cigarettes just so you can get out of the building. You know,
Right.
you get a little fresh air. I mean, I know you're smoking cigarette, but fresh air and, you know, a little reprieve from the fluorescent lights.
About the status, it's all about power. Who's got the power to do what? And they forget why they're there and who voted them. Not everybody.
Right.
Please don't misunderstand.
It's not everybody. And I agree
there's
with
a
that.
lot of people that really get it and stay in touch with their constituents and go to breakfast with them when they're home and make sure they're visible. But do you know what I found when I was working, especially at motor vehicles, when people would go berserk down while they're waiting? If I went down, and as mad as they might have been at me, if I was able to explain what happened, why I voted for a certain bill, or what, they were okay as long as I could explain my actions. And while they may not agree, they didn't want to slit my throat. They understood my position, and if it made sense, they were okay with it. And I don't think the legislators explain themselves as much as they should. They just let it, hey, this is the way I voted, this is it. But I think if they took the time to explain why, the things would go a lot smoother.
Well, it's difficult, too, with a citizen legislature where they are limited in time. And they're not paid very much. Where there's so much information to digest that I think that oftentimes the truth is they don't have a deeper answer. They don't give one because they don't have one. Right? And this is not to fault any specific individual, but sometimes it's the reality where you say, well, if the whip says this or the speaker says this, or, you know, like, I'm going to take their word for it if they've got good reasons and I'll support it. Right? So that's very tough.
Yeah, because a lot of times they rely on the people that are witnesses for the information they need to make. How many times I was up there over the years imparting knowledge that I had that they didn't have. Then they can't be expected to know everything. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, but yet we expect it of them.
Now, I will say, though, a group of people that I've crossed paths with a lot, as I'm sure you have, are legislative aides and counsel.
Oh, yes, great.
The policy wonks. And I think some of those people are the most brilliant.
You are,
just like, to me, a lot of them are like the true public servants, right? Because they get none of the fame, the accolades, the acknowledgement, the credibility, like, you know, none of it. And they
keep it going.
Yeah, they serve. But a lot of them also just really know their field. They're very passionate about what it is they're studying and what they're focused on. And this is, I know, I mean, especially because we have more democratic leaders, I know far more people on the left than the right. But on both sides, I feel like people are really at that level. They really, really care about the actual topic itself and the outcomes.
And how they get it all done. I've always wanted to go after hours and watch what happens when the legislature goes like till 9 o'clock at night. The next morning, they have the calendars, the journals, all printed, all ready to go and accurate. I mean, how do they do that? It's just amazing to me that they pull it all together. It's just incredible.
It's called being 23.
Oh, youth. There has to be a reason why. And you know what else I think I'm going to have David Sheets on. He's the curator of the State House. That man lives and breathes the State House. every single piece of whatever tablecloth, light fixture.
Yeah.
It's got a historical meaning, and he knows it all. I don't know if you've ever met David.
No, I haven't.
He is amazing.
Yeah, people sing his praises.
I'm working on a show that will focus on the chandeliers and the fireplaces at the State House, because they are all unique and all have a story.
That's cool.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it's very cool.
I love our State House. Whenever I have company come, we go to Hope Cemetery. Have you ever been to Hope?
No.
Shame on you. We'll talk about it after the show. Maybe I'll make you go.
Okay.
And the State House. You have to go. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And there's some secret things in the State House that people don't know.
Some
Yes,
trapdoors.
yeah, so there's a trapdoor.
Some speakeasies.
Get the governor out of there quickly. And you can sit on one end of the house and whisper, and you're heard at the other end of the house just by sitting there. You can hear every single word that this person over here says, just the way it's built, and the sound, and you think you're whispering and telling secrets. No, you're not. Be careful. Big Brother is watching.
Well, yeah,
it's cool.
That's true.
It's cool. So I guess, and I was telling you before that the first time I ever saw you was running up the street in Rutland, and you did a video for Rutland, and you're very complimentary about Rutland.
I still am.
Was it the Opera House? What did they just kind of redo over the last?
Oh, that's the Paramount Theater.
Oh my, that is unbelievable what they did.
They did a really extraordinary job.
Unbelievable. Just
yes.
It's just a great city.
It is, and Pat, I don't live in Rutland. I'm not from Rutland. I've never lived in Rutland, but I am one of Rutland's biggest fans.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course, like any community, they're not without their problems.
Yep.
But the people of Rutland are so committed to making Rutland a better place.
Yes.
And like that video, the first time I did a complimentary video in Rutland, or feature of Rutland, must have been 2015 or 2016, coming up the better part of a decade.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, I remember.
Even then, you could feel how invested people were, and Project Vision had just started, and Project Vision was their community effort to bounce back and to really resolve or solve some of these issues, especially around drug addiction. But even from there to today, Rutland has just grown and grown and grown. In the downtown core is so robust and lively. They've got Friday Night Live on the weekends.
People, if you haven't, this is worth the trip. In the summer,
yes,
they have, what is it called?
Friday Night Live.
The whole place just blows up. There's a bazillion people come from. We used to go down when I was running for the Senate. We go down every Friday night, and it was just unbelievable who you'd meet there.
Yeah,
it was incredible. What a happening place.
Right, and they've got the Halloween parade.
Yep, right,
which is pretty amazing undertaking.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's a really great community. There are so many wonderful people there. Again, of course, like there's a lot of issues with poverty and with, especially with drugs, and in Rutland, and there's been some theft issues lately and so forth. But that's the minority of the experience in Rutland,
but you wouldn't know it from listening to the press.
Right.
They focus on the gangs and people coming from out of state, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, if it bleeds, it sells.
And not that there isn't a problem there, but given what else is there, it just overshadows it.
I mean, there's this great organization called Come Alive Outside. The hospital, Rutland Regional, is a top-tier hospital and so devoted to that community. Yep. Downtown Rutland Partnership is their downtown community org, and they are their executive director, Tiffany Saltis, is a friend of mine. She used to be a staffer for Bernie Sanders and is so talented and grew up in that area, so committed. I mean, just Startup Rutland, they have a new incubator startup space, and that's out of Cedar, their economic development core. I mean, I know a lot about Rutland because I'm a huge fan. I actually subscribe to the Rutland Herald, so I get daily letters from Rutland.
That's good.
Yeah, just because I think it's, to me, I'm so inspired by how relentless they are about improving their community. That's pretty cool.
Well, they have a lot here in Montpelier. Montpelier Alive, Katie Trouts. She's a one-man band. She has, I think, a part-time person help. I mean, ridiculous what this woman does.
Yeah, she's great, and she got featured recently in Vermont Public or something.
Oh, yeah, she's incredible.
Which was very well-deserved,
Her father, Otto Trouts, worked in state government, and he is a legend in state government. Everybody knows Otto. I mean, his office looked like a bomb hit it, but he'd say, "You want what?" You'd tell him, he'd go, zip, he'd pick. I mean, the man was amazing, and he had so much, the legislature had so much respect for him. And so she comes from Hardy stock, and she loves Vermont. And I'm very impressed with Katie.
Yeah, and well, I mean, Montpelier has needed that support.
Well, for sure. So. And did they get hit? I mean, and what's upsetting me is it may look okay, but it is not okay.
Right.
And even the city hall, they haven't used their council room. It is full of documents and stuff that just got ruined. Do you know what they did? We did this. I was commissioner of personnel back in the flood of 91 or 2. I can't remember the date. Because I had personnel records, they sent all of our records, which was full of heaven only knows what from the flood. They sent it away to New York in a place where they freeze-dried the papers, dusted off all of the stuff, and then recopied it, and we got back fresh copied stuff. It cost a fortune.
I believe that.
But we got it, and you need the personnel records as the Montpelier needs its land use records and all that. It's just amazing what you don't even know what people did to survive.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So kudos.
Time to digitize.
Yeah. I told Katie I think we should do something huge for volunteers. Just open up the town and just say thank you.
Yeah.
Because they came out of the woodwork, these people.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just volunteers, but the people of Montpelier as well.
Yeah.
There was this great event they did, I think it was back in October. They right down here, I forget what they called it, but I think Montpelier Alive organized it.
Right.
It was for the downtown
was that the Taste of Montpelier? They had one of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of the things they did were things that we used to do, but because COVID came, I mean, we've had COVID, we've had I mean, give these people a break. Seriously.
Yeah.
Thank God they love this place. So we have a 1 minute left, Rocket in Vermont. Oh. What would you like to talk about?
In 1 minute?
In 1 minute, you can do it.
Geez.
Our Vermont's ambassador, somebody called you the Vermont's ambassador, and I think you should play with that.
Yeah, I don't know who did that, but that's fun.
Great. That's good.
You know, I think for anyone listening and has made it this far, I think it's always wonderful to be invited to new parts of Vermont, to see new things. Maybe Hope Cemetery today.
Yeah, yes, well, take a ride.
I love public speaking. I had the chance to speak at a number of different, you know, I did TEDx TED Talk down in Woodstock this past year at Billings Farm. I spoke at the Vermont Hunger Conference that was organized by the Vermont Food Bank. And, you know, I got to speak at a number of things last year, and it's such a great, beautiful opportunity to engage with people on, like, in person. And that if there's any opportunities like that, I think the 251 or 251 plus.
No, they're doing 250. They're sticking with the 250.
Oh, okay.
They decided not to add the 1.
Okay.
That's the towns in Vermont, right?
Well, I know someone had tossed my name in the hat to be a speaker there.
Oh, nice.
So, well, that would be fun. Whatever it is, I mean, to me, it's fun. You know,
that's great.
So I think if there's opportunities like that, that's great. If anyone would invite me, that would be a huge honor.
That's great.
And just telling stories.
And how do they get in touch with you? Oh,
they can find me online. Rocket in Vermont on Facebook or on Instagram, or they can write into our Eat Vermont email address, which is hello@eatvermont.com.
There you go. You heard it here first, folks. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. It was fun. I like to just chat. It's cool. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites.